good people. So to start us off, we have this new word we had not used initially. It's an identifier. So identifier is also a variable name. And a variable name is also known as an identifier. Basically, they are one and the same thing. Identifier has the same rules as we had mentioned initially, such as about a variable name. Basically, they are the one and the same thing. So we have the soft keywords and the likes. So an example is an example of how we can't name a variable name. We can't name a variable name as start underscore place and an exclamation mark. The reason is the exclamation mark isn't supposed to be there, so good variable name would just look like that. So those are some of the things which we have mentioned initially, but it's good to have them in place. So next we're going to talk on objects. I guess we had not covered this initially. So what is an object? For example, I'm going to use an example to try and bring meaning to an object. An object is so when we do a sum in our interpreter or in our file, when we do a sum of 2 plus 2, right? So there's a new value of 4 being stored before the user is given. So that's one object. It's the value that's automatically created by the interpreter when executing a line of code. So when we say a thing like, just an example we have here, we say a is equals to 10, right? Or a is equals to 4. It means our interpreter is going to create a new value of 4, stores it, then when you do a print, it is going to show us 4. It's going to create an object of 4, stores it as 4 temporarily. Once the user is given the 4, it's deleted automatically. So a programmer does not really write an object. An interpreter is the one that creates and manipulates objects needed to run the code. So objects, what are objects used for? Objects are used to represent everything in a Python program, right? I hope that's clear. Objects are used to represent everything in a Python program. What do you mean by everything? What I mean by everything is things like so an object are used to things like integers, strings, functions, lists, dictionaries. Basically, what has to be stored temporarily before the user is shown, and then it's deleted. So once the user has been shown, once the user has received what was stored in the object is deleted. Now that's what we call the garbage collection. The reason why we do garbage collection, whereby once the user has been shown the result they wanted, the memory is cleared so that it creates space for other inputs or other entries, or basically anything else which a user would want to write in the memory. So once the user has been given, it's cleared so as to leave it empty for the next operation. Basically, that's what we call it's an automatic, actually that's an automatic process done by the interpreter to have space for the next, to free up memory space for the next calculation. We have another word called name binding. So a name binding is the process of associating names with interpreted objects. Now, we just from talking about objects, right? So we can now have name bindings whereby the object has names assigned to it. Now that's whereby we have to bind names. So an object can have more than one name bound to it, and every name is always bound to exactly one object. So to ensure there's no confusion within an interpreter, each name or every name is bound to exactly one object. So an object in the memory. So object is in the memory. So we always have a name assigned to it. So when we have an assignment being executed, right? Just like this. When you have an assignment being executed, when you have an assignment being executed, we have a name binding normally occurs, so that the interpreter ensures that what the user is storing is what they're getting back, or whenever they ask for an output, they get what they are asking for. We can have an example of let's say we have users who wants their salary in an organization. So I'm going to call them A and B. So I'm going to have A salary for A will be 10, and then salary for B salary is equals to 20. So right now we have A salary and B salary, right? So these are variable names, and they have been stored as A salary and B salary. Now we can manipulate our variables. And let's go through the process of manipulating our variables with the example we have, right? So you can say A salary A salary is equals to B salary. Now here, initially when we talked of variable naming, we have a variable name on the left and the assignment on the right. So which means A salary becomes B salary. So A salary, which is this, becomes B salary, which means now A salary is 20, right? So we can now manipulate the variable of B salary. So we have successfully manipulated the A salary. Let's manipulate B salary as well. B salary is equals to A salary. Remember, A salary is already manipulated, so it's A salary, which is 20. You can multiply by 2 so that we get 2, right? Which now means B salary is A salary, which have already been manipulated here to 20, multiplied by 2, which means B salary is now 40, and we will see in our output. So we can now calculate the total salaries of both the two of our users here, our employees, with the total salary. Salary is equals to A salary plus B salary. Now, so we can print to see our variable manipulation worked well. So we can print total salary. So we run this in our file. We see we have the correct answer. Yeah, so we can that here, which is 60, which means a salary is B salary, which means it's 20, right? 20, then here we said it was 20 multiplied by 2, which is 40. So 40 plus 20 becomes 60. So our variable manipulation worked well, and as we have seen, and it hope all these were stored in objects in our memory. Now once we've shown success to the user, it's deleted automatically so that we free up space to use for the next process. Now so each Python objects we just explained has 3 defining properties, right? Only properties of an object. So in Python, I can't find the hash. Now it has a value. It has a value. It has a type. It has an identity. So an object has a value like we said 10 or 20, right? The type is the type of the object. What is being stored? Is it an integer? So here we'll have like an int or string. The value here will be like 10 or 20, 10, 20, 30, sure. Then for an identity, it will have a unique identifier that describes the object. The value of an object is the data associated with the object. So if we have 2 plus 2. Sorry, if we have an expression of 2 plus 2, it will create an object whose value is 4, right? The value of an object is examined by printing that value. So once we print the value, what we're just doing here, I hope this explains clearly what I'm trying to say. So it has the value, which was 10 or 20. Type is it's either an integer or a string, which basically here our object will store integers, right? So for us to know the value of the object, once we print, we now get the value which was stored in the object. So here what was in the object was total salary, and if still once we printed total salary, here we see the value. I guess that's it for objects. Maybe maybe you can do more about a little bit on objects, which are some few qualities of an object, or how an object is. So integers in an object can be added, multiplied in an object, right? Can be added, or multiplied, what we just did. Whereas the strings, had we had a string in our object, we could have appended additional text or join them together, which we call concatenate. Yeah, concatenate. So we basically would have either append other object, which means add to it, or we can join them, which is called concatenate. Once an object has been created, the type does not change. What do you mean by here? If you created you created an object of an integer, if an object of an integer was created, it cannot be changed. We cannot convert it to a string, or we cannot convert one boolean to a string, or a boolean to an integer. Basically, what we say, once an object has been created, the type does not change. If you want to see the type of, if you want to see what type one object was created, we just use the word type, then pass in the variable name. So for example, we can use type. We can print type of. We can, okay. Let's use this type keyword. We use type keyword. Type to know the type. To know the type of an object, whether it was an integer, which we use. For example, let's use a type here to know what kind of total salary we use. So we'll use type, and then we enclose it in our variable name here. So that table. Yes. So if I run the file again, it will show me it was an integer. Right? I hope we've seen that clearly. So we use the type to show the type of an object. What is it? An integer? Is it a string? So we use the type keyword. The type of an object, if the object is an integer, string, boolean, and all the other types, determines the mutability of an object. What do we mean by mutability of an object? So, mutability of an object means whether it's allowed to be changed or not. Integers and strings are immutable. I just mentioned it in a little bit, but what I'm trying to say is that integers and strings are immutable, which means you cannot change them. I stated a few minutes ago that if it's a string, you cannot change to an integer, and if it's an integer, you cannot change basically you can't. Integers and strings are immutable. You cannot mutate them. Mutability is the ability to change, whether it can be changed or not. So integers and strings are immutable. If you want to modify the values within an assignment statements, which means new objects are created. What happens now if you want to mutate an integer? It means new assignment will be created, right? I hope that's clear. So we say new assignments are created when we want to modify values. I hope that's clear. When we modify the values we have already, it means a new assignment is going to be created. I hope that's clear. I guess we have covered most on the objects. Most of what happens, their mutability status, and the mutability status. What happens if a string or an integer is changed? Basically, is mutated, because the meaning of the word mutate is to change, right? Mutate is to change. So it means basically the word immutable comes from the English word mutable or mutate, which means to change. I guess that's most of or more of what we've covered on objects. I guess we clear up there, so that in our next class or next role we get to move further to numerical types. Yeah, but I guess this is clear. In case there's a question, feel free to drop me a comment in the comment section. let's meet in the next one. Remember to like, subscribe, and let's learn together. I'm happy to learn with you as we go through this together. See you in the next one. Bye.